Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Nights. This is Kevin. Tonight, we'll venture into the magic of King Arthur. But first, let's get comfortable. Let your body settle wherever feels most at ease. Simply begin by noticing your breathing. Not changing it, just becoming aware of the gentle rhythm. Feel how your chest rises and falls, how the air moves quietly in and out. Just let your muscles remember what it feels like to be completely at rest. Maybe your arms can become heavy beside you. Your legs can sink. Even your face can soften. Your forehead, your cheeks, the space around your eyes. There's nothing else to do now except listen and rest. Each moment brings you deeper into this peaceful state, like settling into the coziest chair after a long journey. And as you rest here in perfect stillness, with nothing required of you except to simply be, prepare to join me on tonight's adventure. And let's see what we discover. This is a tale of King Arthur, the legendary king of Britain who ruled over the famous knights of the Round Table. It is also about Sir Gawain, the nephew of King Arthur, and the noblest of those who sat at the Round Table. It begins, as so many of these tales do, with a damsel in distress. It was said she came while the court was in Carlisle, on a day when the autumn mist hung low over the castle walls, and the knights were gathered in the great hall. Of course, they were sharing tales of their recent adventures as they usually would. The old fire crackled merrily in the enormous stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the tapestries that adorned the walls. And it was then, in the midst of this peaceful scene, that the great oak doors burst open. And they burst open with such a force that they struck the stone walls with a thunderous crash. Her hair was bedraggled, her clothes torn, and her eyes wild with grief. She stumbled into the hall, her bare feet leaving muddy prints on the polished stones, her breathing ragged, as though she had run for miles and miles without any rest. "Help me, King Arthur," she cried. "My husband has been stolen from me and enslaved. by the wicked knight of Tarn. Though I fought him, see how my clothes are torn. There was nothing I could do. My husband is gone. And so I turn to you, great King. Great King, give him back to me. Slay the Knight of Tarn. The woman collapsed to her knees before the high table where King Arthur sat, his crown glinting in the firelight. Tears streamed down her dirt-stained cheeks as she stretched out her hands in supplication. When King Arthur heard this, he was shocked, but pleased at the same time. You see, the sight of the poor woman genuinely moved him, of course, but he secretly loved adventure and couldn't help but look forward to this new challenge. His eyes brightened with the familiar gleam that his knights knew well. The look that appeared whenever a particularly dangerous task presented itself. "Fear not, good woman," he declared. "No knight who enslaves the innocent shall escape the justice of Camelot." And so, the very same day, he set out on his horse. Despite the protests of his advisors, he went alone, armed only, it was said, with a spear, and with Excalibur, his magic sword. And as he went, he whistled. For you see, King Arthur had never known fear. Or if he had never shown it. But this time, something very strange happened. As he rode further and further into the wood, which became steadily darker and darker, that whistle died on his lips. The familiar sounds of civilization faded behind him, replaced by an unnatural silence that seemed to press against his ears like a heavy weight. His usually spirited horse began to shy and snort with nervousness. He passed a lake as black as blood on a moonless night, and his whole body shivered. The water's surface was perfectly still. Not even the faintest ripple disturbing its mirror-like surface. And yet, Arthur could swear he saw shapes moving in its depths. All the trees had lost their leaves. Their branches writhed like snakes in the wind, and ragged crows hung above them, laughing in the horrible way that crows do. King Arthur's teeth began to chatter. His magnificent warhorse had carried him fearlessly into countless battles now trembled beneath him. At last, he saw the knight's castle. It was vast, wider at the top than at the bottom, with 2 dark windows high up and a solid black portcullis below. The very stones seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange phosphorescent moss clung to its walls. From a distance, you could have mistaken it for an enormous human skull. It was as much as King Arthur could do to point his horse towards the drawbridge. But when the portcullis opened, with a loud metallic creaking that seemed to echo from the very bowels of the earth, and the Knight of Tarn rode out, the last of his courage left him. The figure that emerged was clad in armour so black it seemed to swallow light itself. With a groan, he fell to the ground, almost fainting. The knight, invisible in his black armour, dismounted from his horse, walked over to where Arthur knelt. The king could not find the strength to look up. He heard the crunch of footsteps on gravel and the clink of armour. Then came the sound of metal scraping against metal as the knight drew out his sword. There was a minute's silence. It seemed to drag on for an hour. Finally came a voice, a cold voice. So, this is the great King Arthur, it said. Tell me, King, why should I not lop off your head while you grovel before me? You are the devil, King Arthur gasped. No. The knight laughed. My name is Gromer Somerjour, and I am the servant of Queen Morgana le Fay, your sworn enemy. But see, the lady is here with me. With an effort, King Arthur raised his head, and there, standing beside the knight, was the woman who had sent him on the quest in the first place. But now, she was smiling malevolently at him. You see, Morgana had magically disguised herself, and even in his fear, King Arthur trembled with anger at how easily he had been deceived. pity on me," he cried, the words bitter on his tongue. For never before had the great king begged for mercy. "Killing you now would be too easy," the knight replied. "So, instead, I will send you on a quest. Swear to me that you will return here on your own exactly 1 year from now. But when you come back, you must answer me this question. What is it that women want most in the world?" If you can give me the correct answer, I will spare your miserable life. But if you are wrong then, King Arthur, you will die. And your bones will decorate my castle walls. The knight laughed. The lady laughed. Then they moved away. The portcullis came crashing down, and King Arthur was left alone. The journey back to Camelot was the longest of Arthur's life. He had faced dragons and giants, but never had he encountered anything that stripped away his courage so completely. The shame of it burned in his chest like a physical pain. It was sorcery, my lord. It must have been sorcery, Gawain cried when he heard this story. It must have been black magic. That was what caused your fear. That is what made you cry for pity. By your leave, I will ride out to the castle and... No, my dear Gawain. King Arthur stopped him. It is I have been sent on a quest. I am honor bound. What is it that women desire most in this world? I have a year to find out. Then I will come with you, Gawain said. Maybe together we'll have more luck. Arthur looked at his nephew with deep affection. Gawain was perhaps 25 years old, with golden hair and fair complexion that marked him as one of the handsomest knights at court. More than that, he possessed a noble heart and unwavering loyalty. So together, they left Carlisle and they rode out across the country, stopping every woman they met in an attempt to find the answer to the knight's question. They spoke to queens and peasants. They spoke to nuns, merchants' wives. They spoke to young maidens and ancient grandmothers. But they soon found themselves with more answers than they knew what to do with. You see, some said that women desired mostly jewels and fine clothes, while others said a good husband and loving children. A wealthy merchant's wife insisted it was security and comfort, while a young nun declared it was spiritual fulfillment. Luxury, loyalty, immortality, independence. These were just some of the answers they received. There was one old lunatic who insisted that all women wanted strawberry jam. The answers ranged from the bizarre to the banal, but not one of them seemed entirely convincing. And so time passed quickly. A week turned into a month. Another month passed, then 2, then 6. The seasons changed around them as they traveled, from autumn into winter, from winter into spring, and finally into summer again. Soon King Arthur and Sir Gawain found themselves on the way back to the enchanted castle. They had a whole catalogue of answers in their saddlebags, but both knew in their hearts that they had failed. It was on the day before they were to part company, perhaps forever, that it is said that they met an old woman. You see, they had stopped in a clearing to rest their horses when Gawain saw her. She was sitting beside a stream, just reading a book. Gawain's first thought was that she was beautifully dressed, and she wore the finest materials. Her whole body was covered in jewels. But then she turned her head and he realized that she was, without doubt, the ugliest woman he had ever seen. She really was incredibly ugly. Her two lips met several inches in front of her nose, and when she smiled, and seeing Gawain, she did indeed smile, her teeth stuck out, yellow and uneven. Her skin was the colour and texture of rice pudding, and her hair would have looked better on a camel. Her nose had been pushed into her face until it had almost disappeared, and she had such a bad squint. She seemed to be trying to look up her own nostrils. Finally, it must be said that she was horrendously fat. So fat, in fact, that her hands and feet appeared to sprout out of her body without the benefit of arms and legs. But she was a woman, and seeing her, King Arthur decided to have one last crack at the question. He approached her, bowing courteously. But before he could speak, she addressed him in a sort of weird, cackling voice. "I know the question you wish to ask," she screeched. "And I also know the answer. But I'll give it to you only on one condition." "And what is that condition?" King Arthur demanded. The horrible woman grinned at Gawain and ran a wet tongue over her lips. "That knight," she said. "How handsome! What lovely hair! What delicate blue eyes! I rather think I fancy having him as my husband. Yeah. Yes, that is my condition. If you will give him to me in marriage, I will save your life." Of course, at this, Gawain went pale. He was indeed young and good-looking. All his friends expected him to come home one day with a beautiful wife. What indeed would they say if he were coupled with this monster? But even as these thoughts rushed into his mind, second, nobler thoughts prevailed. He had a duty. Yes, he had a duty to his uncle, and a duty to the king. "My lord," he said, "if this woman can save your life.
I can.
The ugly woman crooned. If she can save your life, he continued, then gladly I will marry her. My dear nephew, King Arthur cried, I couldn't possibly let you do that. But you cannot stop me, Gawain replied, and he fell to one knee. My lady, he exclaimed, I pledge you my word as a knight of the Round Table that I will marry you if you can save the king. Now, tell him what it is women desire most. And what you desire, you will have. And so it was. The next morning, King Arthur rode alone, as he had promised, to the castle of Tarn. Once again, a sense of evil surrounded him, like some great darkness. However, this time, he was able to ride forward with confidence. So the answer he carried was a blazing beacon. For the second time, the great portcullis ground open, and the Black Knight rode out, his sword already unsheathed this time. Well, King, he growled, tell me the answer to my question. What is it that women desire most in this world? And so King Arthur replied, boldly and clearly, repeating exactly what the woman had said to him. It is this, he said, that they should have their will, and that they should rule over men. For a long moment, the Black Knight was silent. And then he dropped his sword, and to Arthur's astonishment, fell to his knees. You have answered correctly, sire, he said. And by doing so, you have broken the spell which that evil witch Morgana le Fay had cast over me. She forced me to send you on your quest. I was her unwilling slave. But now her magic is ended. I beg you, sire. I beg you let me come let me come and serve you at the round table. For beneath this foul black armour, I am but a good man, will but prove myself worthy of you. Then you are welcome, King Arthur said. And as he spoke, the dread castle of Tarn crackled and crumbled, and suddenly there was a rushing wind as the bricks and ironwork shimmered in the darkness. Then the sunlight broke through the clouds. The castle shattered, the ground beneath it heaving as if to be finally rid of it. A moment later, it had vanished, and once again the birds were singing. Let us ride together, King Arthur said. And together they turned back to the court. But although the adventure had ended well for him, his heart was heavy. He had a wedding to attend, a nephew to see married. He would have given his kingdom for it to be otherwise. The marriage of Sir Gawain was an event that nobody would ever forget. It was said the preparations alone took a week, for despite the bride's unusual appearance, King Arthur was determined that his nephew should have a wedding worthy of his station. And the great hall was decorated with flowers and silk banners, and all the finest cooks labored to prepare a magnificent feast. And the ugly woman giggled during the service and ate so grotesquely at the feast afterwards that almost as much food went down her dress as into her mouth. She called King Arthur Warty and forgot everybody's names. Of course, this being the age of chivalry, everybody managed to be tremendously polite. When Sir Gawain's new wife got drunk and fell over, they rushed forward to help her up, as if she had merely stumbled. When she made impossibly rude jokes, they laughed and applauded. And they all congratulated Sir Gawain on his good fortune with as much sincerity as they could muster. Poor Gawain was the politest of all of them. Not once did he let on that he had married the ghastly woman because he had been forced to. He called her a lady and held her arm on the way to the table. When she emptied her wine goblet, he refilled it for her. But at the end of the evening, when he found himself alone in the bedchamber with his wife and watched her powdering her nose and all of her 3 chins. It all proved too much for him. He clutched his sword, he clutched his hair. Then he burst into tears.
What is it, my little plum?
The lady asked.
What has so upset you on your wedding night?
Lady, Gawain replied, you know full well what troubles me. You force me to be your husband. In truth, I would rather not.
And why not?
The lady demanded. I cannot say.
Tell me.
Very well. Gawain took a deep breath. I do not want to hurt you, but you are old, ugly, and evidently of low birth. Forgive me.
But what's so wrong?
The woman gurgled.
With age comes wisdom and discretion. Are these not good things for a wife to possess? Maybe I am ugly, but if so, you will never need fear rivals while you are married to me. Is this not a good thing? Finally, you accuse me of being of low birth. Are you really such a snob, Gawain? Do you think that nobility comes just because you are born into a good family? Surely it depends on the character of a person. Can you not teach me to be noble like you?
Gawain thought for a moment. Despite his innermost feelings, he could not help but agree that the old woman had a point. At the same time, he felt ashamed. Whatever he thought of her, she had saved the life of his uncle. He had behaved badly towards her. He had not behaved like a knight of the Round Table. My lady, he said, you are right in everything you say. I have spoken discourteously towards you, and I apologize.
Then come to bed,
she said. But even as she spoke, Gawain detected something different in her voice. And when he turned round, he saw to his amazement that she had changed. It was no fat and ugly woman that lay on his bed, but a young, beautiful girl, fair skin, soft, brown eyes, she said, smiling at him.
Let me explain. Groma so Major, or the Black Knight, as you knew him, is my brother. You see, both of us were enslaved by the wicked Queen Morgana le Fay. I helped the king to release my brother from her spell, but only the kindness and understanding of a noble spirit could save me from my horrible enchantment. This is what you have given me, dear Gawain. And now, at last, you see me, as I really am. I am your wife, if you will have me. But this time, the choice is really yours.
Gawain gazed at her, utterly speechless. Then he took her hand in his own and held it close to his cheek.
My lady, he whispered, I would be honored to be your husband. I love you, not just for your beauty, but for the wisdom you showed me when I needed it most.
The next morning, the court was astounded to see what had happened. And so the king ordered a second wedding feast, so that everyone this time could really enjoy themselves. And it was said that Gawain and his lady lived happily together for many, many years. And although nobody ever told the story when either of them was present, for the fear of embarrassing them, I suppose, on many a winter's night, when the knights and their pages would gather round the crackling fire, they would once again hear the strange tale of the ugly wife.
you.